and for being here promptly on time. It's really incredible that we've had this kind of turnout for this first info session. The program is going to be running a bit later in the year, so knowing that there's already 100 folks that are signed up to hear more about the program is just absolutely thrilling. And I thank each and every one of you for sharing some of your time with us so we can tell you about the program and see if this is a fit. So my name's Philip Smith. I'm joined here today with my colleague from Google News Initiative, Robbie Brown. I'll just let Robbie introduce himself quickly and talk about the work that he does. Let me just
I'll keep it brief. I'm Robbie. If I haven't met you, I'm a former journalist. I work on news programs at Google, which means I get the opportunity to work with Philip and other on the trainings that we do around the world, or application-based programs like this one for people who work at news organizations or want to. I will say this is one of, if not my favorite program, because we bring new people into the world of journalism, or we bring new organizations onto the internet, and it's an incredibly exciting thing to have 50 plus of you want to take part in that. So I'm going to drop my email in here. If you have any questions about, I guess, Google's role in this program, other things we're doing in news, just always feel free to email me. If you have questions about how to apply or what we're looking for, Philip may be your best point of contact for this particular program. But anyway, happy to answer any questions or pass them along to other folks within Google.
Awesome. Thanks, Robbie. And I'll keep my intro short because it's here on the screen, but just, key probably salient parts are that I am a former newsroom kind of staffer myself. I worked at a newsroom in Vancouver, Canada for more than 10 years. It was a startup newsroom, and I left that newsroom to try and answer the question, how can I support other journalist entrepreneurs be successful? I spent a year at Stanford kind of thinking about that question, and the ultimate result was this program that we've run now 5 times for more than 100 folks in the US and Canada, and hundreds more around the world. And I'm excited that we're going to be running it again this year, and let me tell you a bit about it. And we'll get back to our coaches in a second, but first I'm just going to tell you about the actual folks that have taken the program before. So as mentioned, we've run this program roughly 5 times. And the first one was kind of a pilot version of the program that happened back in 2019 with just 5 people. And then with the help of Google News Initiative, we were able to scale up the program to 24 participants in 2020. So that very first cohort was a combined US and Canada cohort, as it will be this year. And I'll share links with you to kind of write-ups of every cohort, so you can go in and dig into the efforts that they worked on, figure out where they are today. And we'll talk a little bit about where they are today, so you can get a sense of, with 2 or 3 years of effort, or 2 or 3 years of work on your effort, where you might, reasonably expect to be. In terms of the next cohort in 2021, we actually split the program into a US cohort and a Canadian cohort. So we had 24 participants in the United States in 2021, and then we had 12 Canadian participants in 2022. And what that gave us the opportunity to do is to actually kind of refine the curriculum for the Canadian participants. I am Canadian, but I've been living in the US now for 6 or 7 years, and I've been working with US publishers for decades. However, my roots run deep in Canada, and I'm excited always to support Canadians in the program. And so we have really updated the curriculum, so it's kind of equally supportive for folks that are working in the very unique realities of Canada, but also obviously it's based in the US, so we have all of the US bases covered as well. And then in 2023, we went back to a combined cohort, so US and Canadians. We had 25 participants. And since then, we've also run this program in Australia, New Zealand, in South America, in Kenya, which is running currently, and Argentina will be starting later this year. So a big question you might be asking is, why did all these people invest several weeks of their lives into a program like this? And what sets this program apart from other programs that are out there? And they all have their advantages. So it's not kind of a picking on other programs. It's just trying to say, like, this is where we think our sweet spot is compared to some of the other programs that exist. Number one, we believe that there's really no magic dust or special sauce involved here. The success of this program, why it works comes down to just really 3 simple things. One is the people that you undertake the program with, so the cohort. We very much spend time helping the cohort kind of create a cohesive relationship, to build trust among each other, and to go on and support each other after the program, which we've seen time and time again. So, for example, the very first cohort in 2020, many of them still meet and help each other and support each other even to this day, so 3-4 years later. Number two component is the coaching that you receive. Unlike most other programs, you are able to access a team of coaches every single week, and we encourage you to do that. That's kind of like a bit of the special sauce, if there is any, is that you get one-on-one time with a coach that is a professional business, journalism, kind of entrepreneurial expert, and they work with you to try and solve any of the questions or challenges that you're having in that week. And we look at you as a group of coaches. We look at every participant and every project, and we try and figure out, okay, from point A to when the program ends, where should that person expect to be? And we work together to try and get you there. So it's a very concerted effort to focus individually on everybody in the program, give them a lot of attention, and get them moving faster, depending on where they are. And number three, the program is really minimalist by design. So the curriculum is just focused on one thing, and that's trying to get you launched by the end of the program if you're not launched, or if you are launched, helping you accelerate very quickly towards financial sustainability. That's kind of an underlying kind of component of this program. We believe that these efforts need to be financially viable for you to continue to work on them. So I'll just return to our coaches for 1 second. So in terms of the makeup of the team, this is the team that we had last year, including myself. So we had Graham Watson-Ringo, Hannah Sung, Natasha Krasinchik, Bert Herman, and Ayinde Alakoye. It's likely that the coaching team will look similar this year. We'll be confirming that in March, but we have confirmed that Graham Watson-Ringo will come back as our lead coach this year. And Graham, if you're not familiar with Graham's work, Graham is a senior director with the News Revenue Hub, where she helps dozens and dozens of local news outlets across the country create strategies to become profitable and sustainable. She's coached 2 of these labs in the past and will continue on, as I mentioned, in her role of lead coach this year. So just very quickly, I'm going to dive into the curriculum, and then we're just going to get right into your questions. So here is roughly what the curriculum looks like week by week. In a nutshell, this is how we sequence it. We start with ensuring that you've got a clear definition of success, financial success, operational success, and impact success after 1 or 2 years after the program. So we want to make sure that when you enter the program in the first week, we have a picture of where you expect to be within 2 years of graduation. We'll then try and guide you through what we believe are the most important skills for news entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs to have, which is interviewing potential customers. And it's kind of an interesting pattern that we come across, that journalists kind of tend to push away from this idea of interviewing potential customers, and we'll probably try and, maybe we'll talk about that in the Q&A. We work with you to determine how you might earn revenue from your effort, whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit or some other model. We've got to figure out, what is the opportunity for you to make this financially viable? And so we'll work with you in a lot of detail around that. And we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how to decide between being a nonprofit or a for-profit or any other tax structure. And we'll encourage you to get registered during the program. We actually have a break week, and the homework during the break week is typically do the effort to get registered, either as a LLC or a corporation, or if you're going to go the nonprofit route, to understand what's involved there in the timeline. From there, I'll be honest with you, it's a bit of a sprint to the finish line. So there's kind of 3 weeks after the break week, and we're going to show you how to reduce risk by experimenting. We'll talk you through the kind of often awkward topic of sales, so how to do sales, what that's all about, how you can be successful at selling your own product. And then it's time to focus on getting your effort launched. And we encourage you to make something that's publicly visible if you're not already public. So that could be a website or a new YouTube channel or a new social channel. And we'll work with you to refine your quote unquote elevator pitch, which is just your ability to convey the story of your effort concisely in under 2 or 3 minutes. And we found that to be kind of a really powerful forcing function, just to help people get clear in their minds about what it is that is unique about what they're doing. So I'll just sum it up. Here's who we believe that this program can really help. We believe it can help people that are first-time or early-stage entrepreneurs. So if you've been in the journalism world for a long time and haven't really dabbled in entrepreneurship or explored doing your own thing before, it could be excellent for you. We believe that we can support efforts that are either pre-launch or in very early stages of being launched. What we've often found is that projects that are a little older than a year tend to get fairly locked into what they believe is the right path forward and just become slightly less coachable. And this program is really about coaching you to have the most defensible business model possible. And so we want to make sure that people are open to that. And often after 1 year or more, people get a bit locked into what they believe is going to work. And last but not least, it's really, for better or for worse, not a program for folks that are thinking about building a side hustle. We really want people to be thinking about building their main hustle. So maybe the effort that you're working on now is already a side hustle and you've started a little bit. And the question is, how does it become your full career? How do you grow it so you can have a team and staff? That's what we're just well positioned to support. The folks just on the flip side that we're less positioned to support are kind of veterans, people that are looking for huge venture investment funding, folks that are just not really open to being coached or input on the idea. So yeah, that's I think one lens to look at whether this program is a fit or not. And in terms of the kinds of startups that we're hoping to support, it's really, and we're going to kind of double down on this year and get a bit more focused. We really want to focus on people that are thinking about civic news and information. So it could be local news. So do you want to do something about your neighborhood or your town or your city, coverage at a state or provincial level of whatever issues, whether it be just the general kind of politics or stuff like that. Regional news. So if there's an area that is defined as a region, Pacific Northwest, Pacific Northeast, that you feel that there's news or information missing from, that could be a fit. And then thematic or single subject news. And that's where it could be kind of a narrow slice. It could be a national effort, but a narrow slice. You're just covering healthcare or cannabis or criminal justice or the environment and so on. And kind of many of the mediums that you've talked about we feel that we've got strengths and an ability to support. So news websites, newsletters, podcasts, social platforms, things that we might not be able to support as well would be like television efforts or traditional terrestrial radio efforts. We have a little less experience there, although one person on our team does have a lot of experience. Streaming services or emerging platforms that we haven't really, that haven't been discovered yet. And ideas that kind of fall slightly out of what we understand to be news with a civic importance. Those are, we've had efforts like that in the program in the past, and it feels like it's harder for us to give as much support as we'd like to those efforts. So we're going to try and focus in this year and be a little more specific around civic news and information. Okay, last but not least, before we get to the Q&A here, the timeline, it's actually fairly locked in at this point. Applications are going to open in the next week or so, and if you're on this list, if you've RSVP'd for the call, you will get a link to submit an application as soon as that goes live, and the application window will be open until the end of May. And at that point, we'll take a couple of weeks to review the applications and actually do interviews. So for those folks that are, feel like they're in the short list, we'll reach out and try and book an interview for 10 minutes just to get a sense of who you are as an individual and to make sure that we understand the idea. At the end of June, we'll send out invitations to participate, and we'll give you a couple weeks we'll give you a few days to accept, but we'll give you a couple of weeks before the program starts. And then we're aiming to start the lab on July 8th. So after the typical long weekend, whether it be July 1st in Canada or July 4th in the US. As mentioned, we'll have a break week at the end of July, and then we'll run to roughly the third week in August. It might actually run 1 week longer to the end of August. But this is the estimated timeline for the lab as it stands today. And one thing that I'm going to do a little bit differently this year, and I'll just say it now and we'll say it again in the Q&A, is if you're in doubt, just apply. The application takes literally 30 minutes, less than an hour for sure. And what I'm going to aim to do in May is office hours. So if you're not sure about your application, you want to talk it through, you've submitted it, but you're not sure if it's a fit, I'll just have some open office hours times where we can just book a time. You can come and chat with me for 10 minutes and we can figure out together whether it's a fit, just to ensure that people are well prepared for that experience. Okay, that's it. We're just going to go to Q&A. And then I'll talk about some case studies, and I'll walk you through some case studies of past grads. So yeah, if you have questions for us, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'll put, in the link. I'll drop the link here again. And maybe I'll actually, yeah, there we go. So, and again, you can feel free to unmute if one of these is your question, and just we can chat about it. Just keep in mind that you'll be recorded if your video is open, if your video camera is on. The application form, Jesse, is not live yet. It will be going live in the next week or so, and you'll receive a link to it as soon as it's live because you registered for this info session. Okay, so I'll just dive into these questions. And again, feel free to unmute if one of these questions is yours. But we have a question from Anonymous. Says, I'm a political scientist and Afro activist. I would love to start my podcast. What should I be to be part of the program you are offering? Hmm. Feel free to unmute and ask that question again. I'm not totally sure what you're asking. It sounds like you're a political scientist and activist, and you're starting a podcast. That sounds like a fit off the bat, I would say, in terms of applying. You should definitely apply. And you're asking, where should I be? Maybe where should I be to be part of the program? Feel free to unmute if that's your question. I'm going to assume it says, where should I be? So I'll just answer it by saying it can be an idea. It can be unlaunched and just an idea that you're considering right now. That is a perfect fit. If you've done some episodes of the podcast and you're just starting to publish it, that is also a fit. If you're less than 1 year into the effort and you're finding that you don't have financial traction, that is also a fit. So I would definitely apply. And all three of those scenarios. Let me just switch to the window where I can mark some of these as answered. How far along does the idea need to be by the application? Does it need to actually exist? So I think I just answered that already, and I'll say it can just be an idea at this point. So I'll answer a couple of questions, then we'll do some case studies. I think it'll help you get a context for who's been in the program before. Many people have joined the program with a day job. So let's say they're working as a journalist in a newsroom, and they see that the newsroom is struggling with layoffs and downsizing, and they have an idea, which is like they would like to go out on their own and start a newsletter or a podcast for their city or town. And many people have applied in that scenario. And I'll tell you some stories about what happened. So they left the newsroom, they started the effort, and currently support themselves from that effort. So the idea doesn't need to be anything more than an idea at this point. However, if you have launched already, that is also fine. Our limit is up to 1 year kind of in existence. Let me just jump to Laura Lynn's question in the chat quickly, and then I'll do a couple more of these, do some case studies. So Laura Lynn, I'll be setting up office hours. So because you registered for this info session, I'll be sending out an email that offers office hours to anybody who is thinking of applying. You could have already submitted your application or considering submitting your application, and you just want to talk it through. That'll be fine. I want to make myself available so people feel like they are prepared to submit a strong application. So hopefully that answers the question. I see Trish has a hand raised. Do you want to ask your question live?
Hi, yeah, if you don't mind.
Oh, your audio might not be, seems like maybe you're on the phone. We're kind of, try again.
Okay, so
I think we're losing you.
And I'm not sure about how much detail you need.
You kind of dropping in and out there, Trish. Would you mind typing your, or try asking it one more time, just to see if it comes through.
Okay, I just was curious about how much detail you need in the application for each of the answers.
Great. That is a great question. It's not very much detail. I wish I could just share the application with you now. It's not quite live yet. It will be live soon, as I mentioned. So it's, it can be completed in less than an hour. I would say the typical, time is like 30 minutes. It's not very detailed. It's basically asking, what's a bit of your backstory? Like, who are you? Are you coming to this as a business person, as a journalist, as a political scientist? What is the problem that you think you've discovered? Like, a certain community is not able to get information on a certain subject because, there's a news shortage around that. Maybe the local newspaper shut down or another publication shut down, or that community's never been covered by the news, and you feel there's an opportunity to step in and fill that civic need. But it's very high level. I mean, we're not talking about essays here. It's just, we want to get a sense of, who you are, how well you understand the kind of like context of your idea, whether you've established that the community really needs that idea to be addressed, and what you're thinking the solution might be. But that's really it. It's quite high level.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And I think, Keisha, did you have a question as well?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Great. Loud and clear.
Awesome. I just wanted to know, like, just in terms of the exchange, right? Does Google look for anything in terms of intellectual property? Is there anything that's wanted from us after we complete the cohort? And then I guess also, what do we stand to gain in terms of like our large, I know you get to case study and stuff, but like our larger distribution goals, I guess.
Do you want me to take the first one, Philip, and you can kind of take the second part?
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
So from a Google standpoint, no, you own your IP. We don't have any ownership over your site. We're here to sort of encourage entrepreneurship in the news space. I will let you know about Google products that may be useful or relevant to you, but this is not a sales exercise. There's no requirement to use anything from Google.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and in terms of distribution, what I would say is, this program kind of, although it is hosted at Google News Initiative and supported by Google News Initiative, it's also, a bit at arm's length too. So we kind of, it's run independently by me, and my idea is to support all of you that get into the program. And the only reason there's a limit is just because there's a limit of how many coaches we have. And so there's not really like, and there's no contract. We don't make you sign a contract other than to say you'll put in your best effort to graduate. But what we have seen, and you'll see in the case studies, is that the network of people who graduated this program support each other, and that is kind of a built-in distribution channel, and also kind of posse or support network, so that you can access to.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. No, thanks for joining. So let me just do one or two more questions, then I'll just do a couple of case studies because we seem to be on time. Maybe I'm rushing, hopefully not too quickly. Do a couple case studies, and we'll circle back to more questions and see if we can get through them all. And I'll just say, if any of the questions are unanswered by the end of the hour, I will go in and answer them and share those back with you. So I applied last year but didn't make it in. How can I explore or refine my idea to improve my chances for success? Well, I would say this year, as mentioned, I'll be offering office hours in March and April. And so I would say that would be a perfect scenario to book in for one of those office hours and just chat your idea through with me. Now, everybody who's applied before who has not been invited to join a cohort, I've emailed you all and said, please apply again. The only reason, there's like two scenarios in which an idea doesn't get invited to the program. One is that simply the idea doesn't feel like a fit with what we can support. So it just might be, a classic example would be, somebody who's working in a traditional terrestrial radio station, and within that radio station, they're wanting to do something entrepreneurial. That's just not really our sweet spot, simply because we found that, like, if you're inside a larger organization, unless you're the boss, it can be very hard to iterate and experiment in 6 to 8 weeks. It's just hard if you have a big team and bureaucracy and so on and so forth. So that's kind of one scenario. The other scenario is simply that, we have to make at the end of the day, we have to make a selection of 24 individuals or small teams that we believe will work together as a cohort, and that we believe we can best support. And there's just, sometimes there's 150 applications. So it just comes down to, we have to make some decisions about, the folks that we let in. And it's not that all the other ones aren't great ideas or aren't a fit. It's just at some point we've got there's kind of a cutoff line. And that's why we keep running the program. So we hope that people reapply, and that, that your idea gets up to the top. So yeah, I would say book in for office hours and definitely reapply. And yeah, and I think just make sure, like, read the FAQs on the actual program website. Maybe Robbie can drop the program website link into the chat, and just really ask yourself, like, is this a fit? Is what the program is aiming to support a fit with what I'm working on? Is this program for established news media companies or supporting new news media ideas which are in the early stage of being established? Definitely the latter. So the program is not, if you're established beyond 1 year, we typically say it's not a fit, and we're going to be fairly firm on that this year. It just, as mentioned, if you're in a big media organization, it's probably going to be hard for you to move an idea forward in 6 weeks. You may need to get sign-offs and approvals from other people, and that just it's not a great fit. We've experimented with that, and we've just seen, like, people don't accelerate as quickly as we would like them to. Number two is, the program is not, it's really designed for startups. So we don't have, the program and the curriculum are not focused on kind of supporting, folks that are 5 or 6 years down the road. There's other programs that Google has specifically for those organizations. One is called the Post-Launch Lab, which, if you're an established media organization, might be worth looking at. Okay, let me do one more question, and then we'll just do a couple of quick case studies. I'm considering starting a local news site in a very small town, about 9,000 population. How small is too small for a local news site? That is a great question. Let me just say, we have had people start news efforts. I can actually bring one up on screen in areas with populations below 1,500. So Now, whether that can be financially viable is a really tricky question, and it requires some kind of unique kind of properties of that population. So if it's a small area and they're very close knit and tight and need the news that you're offering, there's a high likelihood that you can figure out a way to make that financially viable. But I would say 9,000 is pretty safe. We've definitely seen commercial news publishers work in areas of about 10,000 and make it work. So yeah, I'd say totally. Let me just see if I can find Wings, if I can pull it up. No, I'll dig it up separately and I'll drop a link in the chat if I can find it a bit later. But there's an effort called Wings, and it's in a very small part of the Pacific Northwest, and it's tiny, 1,500 people, and it's doing quite well. Okay, so let me just switch to a couple of case studies. We still have tons of questions, so I'll just keep it quick, and actually I'll drop the case studies in the chat so you can kind of dig into them more on your own. But let me just open up my window here. So I'm going to drop some links in the chat to all the grads. So these are the every cohort that's graduated. There's a link that writes up their projects and efforts, and I'm going to talk about just a handful that I've picked at random from the grads who are notable, and I'll drop links to all their efforts in the chat as well. But let me talk to one or two of the efforts and kind of specific case studies that might be valuable to you. So Annalise Pierce is a founder of a news site called Shasta Scout. And this effort, Shasta Scout, launched at the end of the very first program in 2020. Now, what's really notable here is that Shasta Scout operates in Shasta County, California, which is in the very northern region of California, close to the Oregon border. In some ways quite similar to rural, kind of the rural middle of Canada, so the prairies. And this area is known for being extremely conservative. So they have a mega church that has quite a strong hold on most of the infrastructure and services there in the government. They have militias, so kind of like armed groups, and are kind of an area where the Proud Boys, if you've heard of them, had kind of taken hold. So it's a very kind of conservative and right-wing area, and difficult for traditional independent media to operate simply because of that context, and in some ways dangerous too. Now, when Annalise came to the program, Annalise had no formal journalism training. She was a former megachurch disciple, and she had become disillusioned and left. And she had started working with a local weekly newspaper editor just as a kind of an assistant to learn a bit of the basic ropes of reporting. So that's kind of where Annalise was when she entered the program. She knew that she was in a place that desperately needed independent reporting to hold the government and the church accountable, and that nobody else was willing to do it. And she knew that she had kind of the passion and moxie and grit, or she believed that she did, to start a news effort and make it work. Now you fast forward, so when she graduated the program, she had virtually no money in the bank. She had no professional journalism experience. All she had was what kind of we had given her and her own network that she had built in terms of mentorship and so on. If you fast forward to, I think, just the end of last year, she finished the year with, I think about $100,000 in the bank from a very successful Newsmatch program. She has had her stories picked up multiple times by the LA Times and other news outlets. And she has steadily grown her team. I think she has 2 staff people now, and she got approved for a 501c3, which is a nonprofit designation, and has just continued to do incredible reporting this whole time. Just a tireless entrepreneur, but goes to show, like, community organizers and folks that are just passionate about solving problems for their community is a great fit for this program. We don't teach the kind of fundamentals of journalism, but we give you the resources that you'll need if you're in that place. We can point you to kind of, great resources to skill up, and also encourage you or connect you to people that might become mentors and help you with that. So that's one great case study that we're very proud of. Another one, I love to point this out simply because this is on on a new medium, short form video. And I think it really speaks to the potential in some ways of delivering news and information on these new platforms. Travers Johnson, when he started the program, had already launched Queer & See, but it was simply at that time a newsletter. I believe if I went back and looked, he had maybe 100 subscribers and an Instagram channel. which had maybe, I don't know, 500 followers. And over the course of the bootcamp, he tested a number of different ideas, or at the lab, sorry, he tested a number of different ideas, including various guides that would help bring in, kind of like guides that people could sign up to download that would help bring in new subscribers. And he experimented in different formats for his short form videos and so on and so forth. Today, Querency reaches, I don't know, 100,000 or 200,000 people on TikTok, and thousands of people on the Querency email list, and has closed some very significant 5-figure sponsorship deals with the likes of Zillow, the real estate company, and others. So it really goes to show. So that's about two to 3 years since Travers graduated. He was also in that first 2020 cohort, and has really been able to build an actual financially viable business that delivers important reporting and information to his audience every day, every other day. I'll just do one more and then we'll get back to the Q&A because I want to make sure we get through a lot of those questions. Now, Eni is a very recent grad. Eni is a grad from the most recent program in 2023. So it's just some months out of the program. And Eni is working on a daily 10 to 15 minute news briefing aimed at keeping the growing Hispanic population in the US informed about the many issues affecting their communities. So he actually launched this website, this YouTube channel in 2020, I believe, and has gone through another program. It was a YouTube News Creators program. And where we helped or tried to help Eni during the lab was to figure out ways to actually make this financially viable now that he's got a growing audience and reaching more than 30 or 40,000 people. And some of his videos are going viral every week, reaching 80, 90,000 people per video. And so that's kind of a range, news website, Shasta Scout, new media platforms, short form video, but also longer form video as well. I could go on and on and on. I've obviously left a ton of links in the chat. And so I hope that you'll dig into those and have a look at them. And that's just a kind of a random sampling of grads over the last 4 years. Well, let me just pop back to our Q&A. Okay, yeah, we've got about 20 minutes left, so it feels like lots of time. Now, if anybody, again, if you want to unmute and ask a question, feel free to do that. And I'm just going to dig into these questions. And I think I'm going to just unshare my screen so that I can see more of you while we're doing these, but I can still see the questions. Give me one sec here. So would it be too much work and 2 projects? I would like to create a news website in Spanish and a podcast. I would say if they're related, that would not be too much. So for example, if the podcast and the news website are on the same topic, that would be sensible. So yeah, not too much work. That would be totally fine. I have 3 podcast decks to pitch. Am I only allowed to pitch 1? I would say yes. Pick the strongest one and roll with that. Or join an office hours and then you can pitch me on all 3 and I'll decide for you or kind of guide you on which you might want to pitch. Did somebody put up their hand? They want to unmute themselves and ask a question? I thought I heard that voice, but yeah. Tazinga?
Hi, sorry, that was me. I was the one with the 3 podcast pitches.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So I was just curious in terms of like if you whittled it down, I can see making a case for 2 of the 3. But you think just go hard on 1. So I think I'll be talking to you in office hours because I've got, I think 2 that are really plausible given the direction, but it's a question of, which way to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I would say is, we really encourage, especially if you're just at the idea stage, like come in with an idea, but also don't be emotionally attached to it so much that you're unwilling to kind of pivot or move in a different direction. That's what we've seen time and time again is those people are, they have passion and moxie and grit and an openness to figuring out what idea really resonates with their audience are the ones that are the fastest to succeed. I'll give you just some, basic examples. So let's say, for example, I'm going to use this example because we don't accept sports reporting into the program. Sorry if anybody on the call is a sports reporter and wanting to do sports, but I love, people love sports, but we don't consider it to be kind of like really civically important information. That may be sacrilege to say, but it just is the truth for me. But let's say you're a sports reporter and you come into the program, you're like, local paper shut down. I just want to do sports reporting, on a website, and you go out and interview people in the community and everybody's like, I don't care about sports. And you just want to do sports. Well, it's going to be very hard for us to support you. Because if you're community is giving you signals like we get our sports information from Facebook, or we get our sports information from the radio station, and we're not even that interested, like, okay, it's going to be hard to build a viable financial business around that, right? And that's when it comes down to, like, is what you're doing a hobby because you're passionate about it, or is what you're doing building a business because it's important and that's what you want to do? So I would say come in with, your strongest idea, but also, having other ideas is encouraged 100%. And ideas that change in the program are typically, as I mentioned, the ones that really work. They'll get a bit of feedback from their community and they'll be like, oh, wow, I thought they really wanted X, but now having talked to a dozen people, I realized that Y is the opportunity. And if you can pivot from X to Y, there's kind of this better, typically a better shot. So, yeah. I think I saw another hand go up. Is it, I don't know your name. Is Montco Media? Hello, you're muted, I think.
I'm so sorry. I was playing around with my screen.
Okay.
So I have a question. Why are you doing this?
It's a great question. Is that the question? Yeah, I mean, why I am doing it, I think, maybe Robbie can speak to why Google News Initiative is doing it, but why I'm doing it personally is because I was working in a newsroom. So when I started working at the Tyee in Vancouver, I'll drop the link in the chat because it's kind of hard to type it out. The Tyee was started 20 years ago. And when I started in that newsroom, there were just 4 people. There was the kind of the publisher, the editor, the web developer, and me. And, there was this crazy idea, this is, I think, 20 years ago, so it's like 2003, crazy idea that this blog could produce really important information. That's what the mainstream media called our effort at blog. Fast forward 5 or 10 years, the Tyee was winning every award possible and delivering really important information to the people in that community. And so for me, I had this epiphany, which is that the media ecosystem is changing, and traditional news media, big newspapers, big radio stations, big television stations are going to become less and less relevant, probably because of the downsizing of their newsrooms and their actual staff. And there needs to be something to replace that. And I simply believe that replacement for important news and information that people rely on was going to come from startups, was going to come from individuals that, in the case of the Tyee, the editor had been fired from the local paper because he had a, kind of an opinion that was, that the owners, the rich owners, didn't want the opinion out there. And so he was fired, but the opinion was important, or the, information was important. And so, I knew that was happening everywhere. And I thought, how can I support more people in building, award-winning, important, financially viable newsrooms that now support the Tyee, supports a staff of 20, 25 people, has more than 20,000 reader members that pay to support it. And, it's doing important work. And I thought it can't just be this one newsroom in Vancouver, Canada. It's got to happen everywhere. And there's got to be people like you everywhere that want to do this who don't necessarily have the roadmap. And I thought if I can help people with a roadmap and coaching, maybe we can see more efforts like this start and survive. And so far, I mean, it's an ongoing experiment, but I would say to some extent it's proving to be true. If you look at Shasta Scout and some of the other links that I dropped in the chat, you have young women of color from across the country that are building their own newsrooms and hiring staff and winning awards. And to me, that's like, that's the only payment I really need. In terms of Google News Initiative, I'll hand it over to Robbie.
Yeah, that's a great and helpful answer, Philip. I'll give a quick answer for myself, and I'll give a quick answer for Google. So the quick answer for me is I was a reporter for 6 years at the New York Times. I made a very strange career decision to leave and go get an MBA because I feel like figuring out the business side of news is critical to supporting the work that journalists like many of you do. And so I'm in a job now that kind of tries to bring those two things together to think about how Google can play a role in supporting news businesses. This program is one of them. We can have a longer conversation someday about why Google is doing this, but the short version is Google connects people to information on the open internet. And if people are looking for things and not finding it, if they're looking for information about a particular community or from a certain perspective, and it's not there, that's not only not good for the world, it's not good for Google as a company. And so we are making investments in trying to make sure that there is information that is reliable and diverse because that's what users of Google expect.
That's great. That's great. I'm in Conshohocken, which is the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I started a local paper for just to give out the good news. You know, I let the big guys do the negative news and stuff. I focus more on the school crossing guards, the who's who of the neighborhood. So that's what I focus on here in town. But thank you for doing this. Someone like me really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah. Speaking of good news, I'm just going to pop a link in the chat. I mean, one of the publishers that I've worked with for almost, Annie, don't go away yet, for almost 2 decades now, based in Seattle, is Yes Magazine. And Yes Magazine, when other, print periodical publishers, meaning magazines that publish, monthly or quarterly, most of them are really suffering because people aren't reading a lot of, print like that anymore. But Yes Magazine is growing like crazy because they focus on positive news, and it's so different than everything else. So it's a really interesting case study. But speaking of case studies, Annie, can I put you on the spot to say like one minute about how the program was for you? So we've got a recent grad on the program that I just mentioned. So I'm going to pin you, and you could tell people, how was it for you?
It was actually a very good experience. At first, Philip can tell you, I was afraid. I was scared. I was about to drop out, thinking that I was not able to do it. But it was a wonderful experience. The many things that I learned, the tips to grow my YouTube subscribers, which have actually gone up, the many experiments that I was told to do, and that I have been doing, actually that helped me out a lot. It hasn't been the first program, but this program was definitely wonderful. It was like an MBA, truly an MBA related to the media industry.
Thanks, Annie. Totally unscripted. I did not know Annie was going to be here. So you got the raw take. I actually like to, I'll correct, I hate to correct Annie, but I'll correct Annie and say we actually like to think of it as the opposite of an MBA. Robbie's taken an MBA, and I went into an executive MBA many years ago, and this program is designed to be kind of the opposite. Like, MBAs are very boring, and the program is designed to not be boring. So I'll say that in my defense. But thanks, Annie. Let me dive into as many more questions as we can get to, and there's a ton here, so I'm just going to try and do a speed round on these, and then folks can unmute and ask other questions. Let me just bring them back up quickly so as you can read them if they're unclear when I'm reading them out. So, okay, does this program support exiled media outlets based in the United States? That is a great question. I would say if you are based in the US, apply or attend an office hours and we can talk it through. I don't see why not. And we've definitely supported people, for example, based in the US that are focusing on news for Puerto Rico, or based in the US focusing on news for feminist movements in Mexico. So I would say it's within, it's within the realm of likely a fit. And I have a soft spot in my heart for exiled media. So yeah, I would say, either apply or hop on an office hours with me. Somebody was asking about how to hop on an office hours in the chat. Because you've registered for this, you'll get any updates I send out. So when I open, I'll just open what's called a Calendly, where you can just click on it and pick a time. And I'll probably open, maybe like, one day a week, the whole day, there'll be like 15-minute slots, and you'll just pick a time and we'll just hop on a meet like this and just talk me through your idea, and I'll give you some quick feedback. So you'll get an email about that because you're on this info session as soon as I set that up, which will be probably next week. In terms of IP, does Google want anything? I think we already answered that live, which is no. There's nothing signed, no IP that we keep. Does the program require funding? For example, if the growth plan is to advertise, would the newsroom need to fund that? Yeah, at the moment, I mean, it doesn't require funding. If you feel like part of your effort, needs paid growth, you want to run ads of some kind, there currently is we don't offer funding, but nor do we require it. So I would say that, yeah, if the growth plan requires paid advertising, that you would need to figure out how to fund that, but we can certainly talk that through, and I can explain where other people have found that funding in the past. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. I think that's, it's the one thing to keep in mind. While this program is absolutely, free of cost to you, you are investing your time. And the time required is, I didn't touch on that. It's actually, I need to add that into the info session slides. We say kind of a minimum of 4 hours a week up to full time. So we've had people in the program that are, working a full-time job and they're parents like me, and they can do the program. It's, as I mentioned, the curriculum is minimalist by design. What we're really looking for is that you lean in as much as you can with the time you have available. So that would be maybe, an hour a day before your kids get up in the morning and before you go to your job, to do kind of any of the readings, of which there are not a lot. We don't inundate you. It's like 2 readings a week and maybe 1 short video that is a preface to the seminar we do weekly. There's a weekly seminar, which is 90 minutes, and it's mostly interactive, just like this. That's kind of, it's required-ish. If the timing obviously doesn't work because of your day job, we record it. And then a weekly coaching session, which is 30 minutes. You have to book in for that. So you get one-on-one time with a coach. So, total time commitment is, minimum 4 hours. And if you've gotten laid off, or if you are ready to leave your full-time job and you want to put in 40 hours, great. You're going to accelerate far faster. If you're kind of at that 4 hour a week level, obviously we assess and kind of set the mark for where you should be at the end of the program accordingly. So yeah. Are there any past cohort members who are not civic themed entities? How realistically can a non-civic themed entity expect to be seriously considered? There are, there's a lot. I mean, I don't want to, call out people and say they're not civic entities, but, if you go through the past cohorts, the links that I dropped in the chat, you'll see there's definitely, for example, in the last cohort, there's somebody who's working on a project called Adult Scholars, which is trying to make entering university later life more easier through guides and resources. Is that civic news? I don't know. We accepted it. We thought it was a really strong project and a really strong founder. More than anything, we're looking at individuals more than ideas. I think just going back to the question earlier about, can you come in with 2 or 3 ideas? Like, if you are, if you have passion and grit about solving problems for people in a way that involves delivering information to them that they don't have currently, you're probably a perfect fit for this program. If you want to build a fintech news website that's focused on the financial technology industry, probably not a fit. Cannabis, straight up cannabis news website, probably not a fit. If it's, about how certain populations are impacted by the cannabis trade, and that's, you feel like there's something there that might be. So I'd say, either book an office hours or apply anyway. And we're really looking at the individual more than the idea at this stage, to be candid. Thanks, Patrick. On behalf of yourself and Boris, is it possible to submit 2 projects? I think we already answered that one. If I'm an existing small community newspaper who's trying to expand into more digital web presence, typically not. Depends. If you're older than 1 year in terms of how long you've been publishing, I'd say, just to be candid with you, probably not. We just tend to find that like traditional to digital transitions is not our strength, frankly. There's other efforts out in the world of which if you email me, I can try and dig up some links for you, but there's other kind of like programs that are specifically around digital transition and transformation for existing media companies that would be kind of a stronger fit, I believe. If you didn't get in last year, what should you do differently to be selected this time around? I'd say if you've applied in the past and didn't get in, book an office hours with me and we could just talk through your last application. I'll try and be candid with you. Like, it's just, as I've said time and time again, it's just really about, do we feel we can support, you and the effort? Will it fit within the cohort? Is it playing to our strength as coaches and being able to support you? So I'd say just get in for an office hours and we can talk it through. Specific educational professional background? Absolutely not. Nope. 0. As I mentioned, Annalise Pierce did not have any specific professional journalism background and is absolutely killing it, doing just amazing, groundbreaking work. So definitely no. Just passion, moxie, and grit, I think, are the 3 things. So Google's role with support, I mean, it's Google's there as a cheerleader for us. Obviously, Google is financially supporting this program, making it possible to run it at absolutely no cost to all the participants for many years now. And, in the past, Google's been supportive in any way they can be in terms of connecting you with resources, offering you a free year of service with a certain CMS provider that isn't Google, so kind of an independent third party, and so on and so forth. But they're there more, I would say, as our partner and cheerleader, in the hope that you can get up, stand it up effectively. I've already mentioned office hours. I'll send out a link to everybody who's on this call in the next week or so. I already answered that one. Does the cohort talk about tools? Absolutely. That's all they do is talk about tools. So we have the cohort is in a Slack channel, and there's talk the whole program about everything. Tools, video editing, podcast editing, AI, translations, editorial practices, ethical practices. It's all about that cohort and that conversation, 100%. Any funding or small grant for nonprofit news media? I'll let maybe Robbie answer that in the chat.
I guess I can answer it really quickly.
Sure.
There have been years where Google has been able to provide funding. We can't promise that this will be one of them. We weren't able to last year. So I would say I wouldn't enter the program with that expectation, but we realize how important even a small grant can be in making this successful. So it's possible.
Cool. Thanks, Robbie. Last two, and then we'll just see if anybody has any outstanding questions from the chat or wants to unmute. We'll try and finish right on time. So we're a 27-year-old news brand that shut down in January. We're looking to relaunch from scratch. Maybe. I'd say book an office hours or apply. Hard to know without more detail, but maybe. We're considering establishing a media company as a strategic initiative to complement our startup's growth. Maybe. I'd say that's an outlier. I'd say probably more no than yes, but I would say book an office hours or drop me an email with the idea. Okay, so that's all the questions that were there. Let me just unshare and see if there's any last questions before we sign off in 1 minute. This has been, I'll just say now, this has been really fantastic to have all of you on for the whole hour, and the questions have just been really, really great. And I'll drop my email in the chat as well. You can feel free to just email me with questions, or if you just want a quick sense of your idea, whether it's a fit, drop me an email. I'll do my best to get back quickly, but obviously I'll give me a couple days, and then I will announce office hours in the next week or so you can book in for 15 minutes and just chat your idea through with me. We're going to try and keep it very open and fluid this year. We want to make sure that we can support everybody that we possibly can within the confines of only having 3 or 4 coaches. Oh, Monica Gar, I've seen that name before. Good to see you again. Any advice on books and resources, Laura Lynn? Absolutely. The whole GNI Startups Playbook is, just Google that if you haven't seen it. Has tons of information. Maybe Robbie can drop the link in the chat while I'm looking through the chat here. Mark Hussey asks, have to slip out? Okay, fine. Okay, cool. Well, feel free. Hey, Larry. Great to have you here, Larry. Thanks for that. So yeah, any final questions before we let you all go? Last chance. We're actually going to do this info session again in a month. So if you didn't get
quick question.
Yep,
I'm sorry, I'm not looking at too many windows open. What's the deadline for applying?
It'll be May 31st, I believe.
May 31st.
End of May. So you got lots of time. Okay, cool. Well, then it's 11 o'clock my time, so let's hold it there. It's been fantastic. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Today. Yeah, and if you know of anybody who's interested in the program, please feel free to share the information, and we'll have another info session in a month, and so you can feel free to come back on. And office hours, I'll let you all know about as soon as I can. But it's been great. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.